Monday, February 10th, getting into Greek mythology things. Before we get to Greek mythology things, those of you who are gone, you're going to need to get these pieces of paper from me. There's a blue one you're going to need, and then there's a little whitey one you're going to need. Thank you. So you're going to need those from me. Let's see, coming up, narrative speech we're going to talk about in a moment. Camp Tecumseh tomorrow. Book report checkpoint coming up on Friday. And then if you lost this little yellow sheet that has all the information on it, you can get a new one from my website. There's a whole Greek mythology page. This we are now officially done with. We get to actually move into really kind of Greek mythology things today. All right, little white piece of paper. This is for the speech coming up on Thursday, your first real big speechy thing for a grade, the one that we're doing all the practicing for. On this one, it is going to be our biggest grade so far this 9 weeks. The only thing bigger is going to be your book report. That comes due after this. So as of now, this will hopefully dramatically improve your grade if you do well on it, or dramatically ruin your grade if you bomb it. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. On this speech, you have 3 options. It's called a narrative speech. So you have 3 different types of stories you can choose to tell, and it is your choice of which of the 3. Option 1, you're going to do your book report book. You're just going to tell us a book talk from beginning to end. You're going to tell us how the very beginning of the story happens, middle of the story, and the conclusion of the story. You may only choose that one if you've actually finished your book. If you've not finished the book, you cannot choose that one. Also realize, some of you, 10 of you are going to be giving speech this week. 10 of you give your speech next week. And then 10 of you are going to be giving your speech the week after that. So if you give your speech that last week, then hopefully your book is finished by then, because that's when the book report comes due. So those of you who choose to go this week, your book report book might not be the best choice unless you're just really good at reading your book and have already finished it. Option 2 is going to be a fable again. And so you just cannot do the same fable you did for the last one. It's going to be a slightly longer fable, because it's going to be 1 minute to 2 minutes. For those of you who are already telling long fables and sort of wrap it up, this one's for you. So you're going to go more in-depth on it. Again, have animals in it, follow motif, teach a moral, all those things you're supposed to do. All of that goes into it. So that'll be option number 2. Option number 3 is what's called a parable. And a parable is a real-life story about your life that teaches a lesson of some kind. It's sort of like a fable about you, where you did a thing and you're going to try and help us to make us a better person. Like the fact that you shouldn't, stick a fork into a light socket. And you're going to tell us about that one time when you were 3 and no one was watching you and you bent the little fork and you crammed it in there and stuff like that. Or you could tell the story about that one time you applied to be in the National Junior Honor Society, and then while the teacher was still reading applications, you were distracting during class, jumping around trying to get other kids' attention, and then wondered why you didn't make it in. And that could be the parable that we could choose to tell also. All of these could work as some kind of story you pass along. So you have your choice of any of those 3 types that you want to do. Then the other page on the back side, here's how the grading of it's going to work. Top part, up there, you're going to have to tell me the characters and a description of them. And then you are not writing out your whole fable ahead of time or your whole speech ahead of time. You're just doing an outline. So on there, you're going to do like the beginning of it, the middle of it, the end of it, not using complete sentences. It's just being like no more than 7 words for each line. But that's all you get to use. You get to take this up with you during your speech. So you're just giving me an outline of what's in it. That is worth 15 points of 30 of your grade. Then your story part right here is worth 15 points also. Did you follow the directions? Is it a good story? Does it make sense? Gets you 15 points. And then finally the bottom part, which is the actual speechy bits. As you go through and do that one, the question is, did you manage to not fiddle with the strings on your hoodie, rock back and forth, ands, ums, and likes? Below that is going to tell you that your time is at least 1 minute, cannot be longer than 2 minutes. If you are short, it costs you points. If you go long, it costs you points. And then ands, ums, and likes, every time you and, or like, it costs you half a point. Up to a maximum of 5 points. You cannot lose more than 5 points for that. So it drops you a letter grade, and that would be it. Thursday, I'm assuming, is going to be mostly Honor Society kids who have to volunteer, or non-Honor Society kids who want to volunteer. If you're not Honor Society and you don't want to go, I'm guessing there's very little chance that you'll be giving your speech this week. You'll probably go next week at the soonest. because I'm imagining this week is mostly Honor Society kids and volunteers. And then as we start to run out of volunteers, then you'll have to go. Did he?
So is blood, gore, and stab allowed?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as it follows the directions. Then that comes up Thursday. So we're good to go on that one? Yeah. Blue sheet. Now, white sheet you can put away. We're done with that one now. Or just put it off to the side so you don't lose it. Losing it in the next 3 weeks does mean you have to buy a new one. Or low-key try to grab one while I'm talking and then lose points for it and whatever. And then blue sheet, jumping to that. Question, Hoy?
Wait, so you charged me points when I grabbed it?
Yeah. Alrighty. Glad that brought you happiness.
Okay.
Good conversation. Blue sheet. This is our cheat sheet for mythology moving forward. As I said before, we're not going to have a whole lot of handouts and stories. So because of that, this blue sheet will make things easier on you. It is not due until the end of March, which is 7 weeks from now. 6 weeks, right around there. So you have to not lose this for the next 6.5 weeks. If you do lose it, you have to spend 3 points to buy a new one. And then re-copy down all the notes we're putting onto it. My goal is I'm going to give you all the answers. You just have to be able to pay attention and write them down. Some of you are smart enough to realize you already know some of these answers. If you look at number 1 and you paid attention last week, you know number 1. And so on some of those, you can start filling in answers as you know them. If not, then you'll just have to pay attention to things again. Some of them will be a little bit out of order, like we're going to jump to number 32 today, or if not today, then Wednesday, because we're going to talk about that one. Not all of them will I tell you the number. A lot of times I'll just tell a story, and they're like, that was questions 5 through 15. And it's up to you just to make sure you are paying attention to write them down. Luke!
So, what if we miss a question? Can we just leave it
Probably. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Andre?
I don't have a treat because I'm here.
That could be. See me at the end of class. I can get one for you. All right. Then to you guys. Blue sheet, top left-hand corner. First thing we're going to do is sort of connect words to Greek mythology. We already did this a little bit with Mercurial in my regular classes and Volcano with you guys. But now we're going to expand it to a handful of other words. So what I'm going to do is a little yellow sheet thing that you have here. If you look on there and then look on Family Tree and then use posters, you'll be able to figure out what gods these words come from. My goal right now is to stall and wait for the smart kids to figure out the first word, to figure out where jovial comes from. And I have faith in one of the smart kids to figure it out. If you're not one of those kids, then you're the kid trying to low-key stare at the wall and drool, waiting for other people to do the work for you. But I figure eventually, my stalling will pay off and someone will figure out what god jovial is connected to. Diddy?
Zeus?
Why do you say Zeus?
Because it's Jupiter, Jove.
And Jupiter, Jove is in parentheses, which means what name is that?
The Roman.
Go you. You're correct. Jovial comes from Zeus because his Roman name was Jupiter or Jove. He had two. Apparently, Zeus was kind of important. He's over here above where Andre is. For some reason, the artist in that one gave him like a mermaid tail or made him like half air person, which is weird. But he is at least holding on to his lightning bolt. Over yonder, he's above kind of where Aquila and Crow are. Again, he's riding the lightning like Metallica in the picture there. And then over here, he's just hanging out, holding on to his lightning bolt while sitting looking off. That would be Zeus, who is basically the king of all the gods in Greek mythology. He was not always king of all the gods. It used to be his father until Zeus killed him. And it used to be his father's father until his father's father killed him. But we'll get to those stories coming up. Ooh, do you guys know what jovial means? Sometimes, Chris? It does mean happy. I was going to say sometimes used to describe me, but then you guys get all kinds of weird with your answers. We're going to go with happy. I usually try to be a bit more happy as opposed to like evil or killy or something like that. It can also mean on top of the world, which is how it originally connected to Zeus, because it was thought that being a god was a really good job to have, and then being king of all the gods was an even better job to have. So they figured if you were king of all the gods, then things had to be going really well for you. So they thought of him as being jovial. So if you were having a good day, they're like, hey, you're like Zeus. Everything's going your way. You must be just like Jove. Which is ironic when we get to jovial and Zeus, because it is the last word we would connect with him. So what would make that ironic about him?
He's angry.
He's not a happy camper. Most of our stories about Zeus are going to involve him being unhappy and killing a person, or unhappy and getting ready to kill a person, or being unhappy and have just killed a person, or being unhappy and thinking about killing a person. Most of the time it's going to involve him being unhappy after killing a person or being friendly with people. But then after he's friendly with someone, he usually celebrates by killing a person. So it almost always comes back to him being unhappy in some way. The Greeks love irony. It's going to pop up with quite a few of them. Are we figuring out cereal now?
Yes.
Chris
It's connected to Demeter because her Roman name is Ceres.
is correct. Demeter, whose Roman name is Ceres, Ceres, she is the one that's over here in brown, who is looking off into space while hugging wheat and throwing a gang sign. I don't know exactly what gang sign she's throwing, but you can be a member of her gang if you can throw it back. Over here above Aquila, she's not throwing a gang sign. She's just sitting there in her throne of wheat. And then in this one, again, no gang sign. She's just angry pointing at another guy in the picture, which we'll get to her on that one too. And Demeter was the god of grains and harvest, sort of Mother Nature-y. Casper,
I think they know the definition.
what's the definition?
Oh, her name is Cereal.
Yeah.
And she's the god of like wheat,
Yes?
and it's like breakfast.
You're so well, and then you fell apart at the end. It doesn't mean breakfast.
Food.
Keep going.
Yummy.
Now you're farther away again.
Grain.
Keep going. Now put it all together.
Food grain.
Only we can put a preposition in the middle of that. So yes, cereal is food from grain. And we're going to talk about the yummy bit here in just a moment. So here's part of our issue. To go back to Casper talking about cereal being yummy. Cereal, not yummy at all. Because what you guys have for breakfast now is not cereal at all. Cereal is actual food that comes from grains and harvesting of stuff, which they used to serve in the morning to children. But it looked like something you would give a horse. It was just a little chunk of little weedy bits, and you would put it down into a kid's plate, and they would pick it up and go crunch, and go, yeah, yeah, and they had to try and work their way through it, and it was absolutely disgusting. You can still have it today if you go to your grandparents' house, and you spend the night, and you get up the next morning, and they go, would you like cereal? And you go, yes, and they pull it out of the cupboard, and they give it to you, and you go, this is not cereal at all, this is disgusting. Because that's what cereal used to be. But then one day, they used to put sugar on the cereal to help kids eat it, like an actual bowl of sugar, and you would scoop it and just go plop, 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 plop on top of it, and then kids would eat this, and like, oh, this cereal's not so bad with the sugar because I like the sugary bits. So one day, there was a guy at a company who said, you know how we're going to make money? We're going to take the cereal, and we're going to go ahead and put sugar on it in the factory, and that makes it even easier for the kids to eat. And it worked. And they made what we call fat cash. And they made tons of bank. And this went well for years. Until one day, another executive said, you know what? I really like this money thing. And the other executive said, yes, I do too. He goes, I would like to make more of this money thing. And they go, yes, I would too. They go, I have an idea. And they go, what is it, executive number one? He goes, you know how we take sugar and we put it on top of all the wheat? And they go, yes. He goes, here's my idea. Take out the wheat. Put in sugar. And they go, wait a minute. So you're saying we're going to put sugar on top of the sugar? He goes, yes. And they did. And kids loved it. And that's what you guys have today. And that's why we have Cookie Crisp. And so essentially, that is just sugar on top of sugar. So when you guys eat it today, there's no actual cereal there. It's just sugar-flavored sugar with some sugar to help the sugar go down. Yummy. Volcano! Ah. Bulky.
Hephaestus.
Nicely done. Going back to when we learned that one before. Hephaestus. And Hephaestus, what was he the god of?
Fire.
And what was his Roman name?
Vulcan.
Oh, you're on fire. Wait, you're on Hephaestus. And so, again, he's the one that's over here next to the gang sign throwing Demeter with the fire behind him all over the place. The thing in front of him that's in black is what's called an anvil. If you've never seen one, you can either go to Connor Prairie, they have them there, the people are outside, or anytime that you watch Looney Tunes cartoons, it's what you use to stop a roadrunner when it's trying to get away from you. You drop it on top of Roadrunner if you're a coyote. But he uses it to actually make things. Also, underneath his arm is kind of hard to see, but that's a crutch that he has underneath his arm. There's another one in the one behind Snow, but it's even harder to see because it's all dark if you get close to it. And that next little furnace, he's got one. Here, no crutch. He's just sitting down, but there's a reason for it. In mythology, he is the only god to be crippled. And he had one leg that did not work. And so oftentimes he'll either be seen sitting or be seen carrying a crutch and sort of walking around in circles and stuff like that. Yes, we will get to that story, just not yet. It goes back to when he was a wee child. One of his parents chucked him out a window. But his parent had a really good reason. Some stories say it's because he was ugly. Some stories say it's because he sassed his parents. Either way, that's a perfectly legit reason to yeet a child out a window. Either because they sassed you or because they're ugly. Or it's because they get excited and talk and make a teacher have to yell at them.
I'm sorry.
I forget. So then, with him, Vulcan, or Hephaestus, with his worky place, that's a technical word, worky place, was inside of mountains. And whenever he was at worky place, it would sort of build up heat inside mountains until eventually it'd blow out the top of it. And he had different ones that he would work in. So anytime you saw a volcano, it was because you knew Hephaestus was on the inside of it working. So a volcano literally just meant house of Vulcan, because it was where he lived. And so that mountain of fire was connected to him and the fact that he was working there and shooting fire out the top. Shalini. Oh, I thought you had a question. Trying to imagine how awful it is. So volcano, Hephaestus, crippled guy, covered that, mountain of fire, good to go there. All right. Mercurial. Shalini.
It's connected to Hermes.
Hermes, what's his Roman name? Nicely done. It looks so excited on that one.
Yeah.
Learning. Hermes. He is the guy over here in the orange and yellow doing Heisman Trophy pose. Got little stick, little piece of paper, stuff like that. Over here, he's above where Jillian is. And it's, again, bad reflection for me on that one. But he's yonder. And then here, again, doing little runny things. Shalini, what does it say he is the god of? This is where your paper comes in handy.
Yeah.
I know, you got that. It was silly of me to try and remind you of such things.
Yeah, I know.
Because he's in the top left in the Olympians area, right? You already knew that too?
Yeah, I knew that.
I can tell.
He's the god of merchants, messengers of thieves, messenger of Zeus.
Nicely done. So this was a few years before we had text messaging or telephones. So if you wanted to send a message to someone, you had to write it out by hand and then give it to the person. They'd take off running, which is why he has a little notepad in his hand right there as he goes running. Messenger of Zeus, him being speedy, was one of his main jobs that he would do. Along with that, he was the god of merchants. If you were going, you guys know what a merchant is?
Yes.
This is before we had Walmart. So if you've seen the cartoon Aladdin, because I have not seen the new one, I don't know if I have it. The cartoon Aladdin, at the very beginning of it, they have the bazaar, where they're all walking around like selling stuff, and he goes by and like steals fruit and has to like run around singing. That's how most of Greece was. You would have to yell your goods at people. And so the faster you could yell, the more money you would make. So merchants would pray to him so they could speak quickly, like an auctioneer, the whole fast talking thing. Also, the people who would pray to him were thieves. Because if you're going to be a thief, the idea is that you have to be really quick when you steal a thing. And that way you can steal it before they have any idea it's gone, and then you get yourself a nice new writing utensil. Or, if you're a bad thief and you try to steal a thing, and you get caught, you're the worst person ever at catching someone, and you get caught, good job! Then you'd pray, worst person, good God, child! I mean, good Zeus, child! And you get caught, you would then have to also pray to Hermes, because you'd have to run away quickly. Unless, of course, you're stealing from Noops, then you can steal as much as you want, and she'll just watch it happen and wonder why she has less stuff. Ay. Hephaestus could steal from you, child, and be fine. He's like, as he runs away. So it brings us back to Mercurial. Oh, the word Mercurial, by the way, means able to change quickly. Oftentimes used for science experiments, a mercurial reaction is where the chemicals react quickly. The best thing I can tell you on that one would be if you've ever dropped Mentos into Diet Coke.
Your mom.
You never want to do that like on the inside of your house. Be like, all right, I'm going to drop it in there, and then we're going to take it outside. You're like, all right, ready? Open the door. Blah! Oh, too slow. And because that's a mercurial reaction, it's very fast. Whereas if you put your finger into water and then go, ooh, let's watch this freeze, not mercurial. You're going to be there for a while. So a mercurial reaction is a very, very speedy reaction. Also, before we go to our next one, kids, we're all excited to learn. If you look at the little sticky thing he has in the hand, he's got same thing over there, which again, bad reflection for me. Same thing over here. It's a stick with two snaky things and little wings on it. It's called the caduceus staff. Looks something like this. The caduceus staff is, well, being the god of thieves, he stole it, but it is a stick of healing. It allowed him to heal people. He himself was not necessarily a healer, but it connected to one of his jobs. In mythology, they believed that it was Hermes' job to take souls to the underworld. Let's say poor Spencer is so excited with learning that his brain gets full. And he's like, my brain is full! And then just falls over and dies. Well, in Greek mythology, Spencer's body, or his soul, pops up out of his body. Hermes would be running by, see that soul, grab it, and he would just sort of take off with it, and you would flap behind him like a little ribbon. And he'd go around and collect a whole bunch of like snack, 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 and like all these ribbons behind him, he would take you down to the underworld, release you, you'd float down like a little piece of paper, and then boing, and then he would take off again. Sometimes, though, it was not your time to die. Let's say he goes running by and sees Spencer, and Spencer's like, I'm dead, here I come, Hades! And his little soul's popping up, and Hermes goes by and goes, nope, it's not your time yet. He would then take his little stick and go, boing, and tap him on the head, and all of a sudden that healing staff would bring Spencer back to life. And his soul would whoop, get sucked back. He's like, I'm alive! And be happy. And so the idea being is that's how they explained a near-death experience. That Hermes would come by and touch you and bring you back to life. Which is why you should recognize this today. Nicely done. When you see it connected to hospitals, though, sometimes it looks a little bit different. Sometimes you're going to see the one that looks like this. Sometimes one that looks like this, which is a stick with just one snake. There are actually two different healing staffs in Greek mythology. This is the stick of Asclepius, which is a whole different person. But because over the years people kind of got lazy, they sort of combined them together. And you can use either one. This one or that one. Both of them work. So if you've ever seen that and wondered why on the back of an ambulance you have a snake beating stick, and you're like, does that heal people to beat them with a snake stick? At one time it did. If they didn't know any better, you would put this on the side of your little medical hut, and people who couldn't read would see that, would know to come by, and they could get healed. Casper?
Hermes has the same helmet as the Flash.
You are correct. Once again, DC Comics uses a lot from Greek mythology. If you saw the Wonder Woman movie, the main bad guy that she fought in that movie was Ares, the guy that's right over there. And so if you go back into DC Comics, the very first Flash costume looks a lot like that. Yeah. All the way down to the shoes and the hat. Like literally for the very first Flash comic, they just took Hermes and just painted him red. And then over time they sort of changed it and gave him a lightning bolt. But it used to look just like that. Luke, question? No, you know the next word? You're just excited to die. Fatal! Luke, where do we get fatal from?
Hades.
No, but a good guess. That's one that a lot of people go with. They'll say Hades or they'll say Thanatos. But no on both of those. That is sort of the after effect, but not the actual word it comes from. Good strong one though. Journey?
Fate.
What'd you say?
Fate.
Yes, correct. And good job not trying to pronounce it the Greek way. Because I have some kids who try to pronounce it Greekly. They're like, the fatis? I'm like, what? Like, the fatty? I'm like, no, you're just fat shaming them now. And so it's just the fates, and there were 3 of them. Here is where, once you've written this in, you're going to want to go to number 32 on the blue sheet, and I can answer information about the fates. There were 3 of them. In Greek mythology, you had 3 sisters who were the fates. The first one was a girl by the name of Clotho. C-L-O-T-H-O. And her job was to create this giant ball of string. Excuse me. So some stories in Greek mythology say that the ball of string already existed and came with Mother Earth. And it was simply her job to protect it. And that once this ball of string was empty, no more people could be born. Other stories say that she created the ball of string and formed it and brought it into this world. Either way, Clotho was the one that controlled the ball of string. The second sister was Lachesis. L-A-C-H-E-S-I-S. Lachesis. Like La Jesus, but with a cheese in the middle instead. Lachesis' job was she had a measuring stick. And her measuring stick, instead of having like inches and feet on it, had seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, decades. And so she had a measuring stick, and she determined how long every human or god would live. She was the judger of the length of your life. The third sister was Atropos. A-T-R-O-P-O-S. Atropos. She had the magical scissors. The only scissors that were known to be able to cut the string. And it was her job to cut your string. The cutting of your string did not kill you. The cutting of your string brought you into this world. It was the cutting of a string, and then wah, wah, you would then be born, and then you would be good to go. So those three sisters worked together. So let me give you a little background on how the whole fates and stuff like that works. Let's deal with poor baby Kemp. Let's say baby Kemp is getting ready to be brought into this world. So as Mama Kemp is getting ready to give birth to little baby Kemp, they start bringing out the little string. So sometimes when you bring out the little string, it would get snagged. And they'd pull it out there, and it'd only go to like 3 minutes. Like, good enough. So then Atropos would cut the string. As soon as you cut the string, that was her being born. Cut, fizzle, wah, wah, out into the world comes little baby Kemp. But being as it only lasts for 3 minutes, it goes cut, fizzle, wah, 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 and that was it. And that was how the Greeks explained baby death. Aww. Tomorrow we'll work on dealing... No, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Camp Tecumseh. Wednesday we get to work more about the fates and what happens to some of you. Toodles!